I did not cry at my 18th birthday party. I just smiled and died right in front of them. It was not a medical death, but a total erasure. I vanished clean and cut every string. 5 years later, just when they thought they had buried my name, they dug it up only to bury themselves deeper. Because this time, I did not return to beg for love. I came back to settle the score. My name is Caroline Williams, and for 18 years, I existed as a punctuation mark in a sentence written about someone else, in the manicured ecosystem of Lakeview Heights, Missouri, where lawns were measured in millimeters and scandals were buried under hydrangeas. I was the typo my parents could not quite erase. My sister, Hadley, was the headline. She was 20, golden-haired, and possessed the kind of aggressive charisma that made people thank her for insulting them. I was merely the footnote, the shadow in the family portrait that the photographer tried to edit out with lighting tricks. On the evening of my 18th birthday, the humid Missouri air hung heavy over our backyard, thick with the scent of charcoal smoke and expensive perfume. My mother, Marla, had insisted on a party. She claimed it was for me, but we all knew the truth. A Williams family event was never about the person being celebrated. It was about the audience. The backyard was filled with people who barely knew my face. There were deacons' wives from Stonebridge Community Church, clutching sweating glasses of Chardonnay, Hadley's friends from college who looked like they had been mass-produced in a factory for beautiful people, and my father's business partners who checked their watches more often than they smiled. I stood near the trellis of climbing roses, wearing a pale blue dress Marla had picked out. It was too tight in the chest and too loose in the waist. A garment designed for Hadley's body type, not mine. That was standard procedure. I was living a life that was essentially a hand-me-down. Hadley was by the pool, holding court. She was laughing at something a young man named Preston was saying. Her laugh was a practiced scale, musical and loud enough to draw every eye. She looked radiant, the perfect product of Gordon and Marla Williams's genetic merger. I watched her with a detachment that had taken me years to perfect. I did not hate her. Hate requires energy, and I was exhausted. I was simply waiting. I did not know what I was waiting for, exactly. Maybe I was waiting for the sky to crack open. Maybe I was waiting for permission to stop pretending I belonged here. My father, Gordon, walked past me with a platter of sliders. He paused, looking at me with the vague confusion of a man who encounters a piece of furniture he does not remember buying. "Happy birthday, sport," he said, his voice carrying the forced joviality of a game show host. "Try to smile. People are watching." I stretched my lips into the shape he wanted. He nodded, satisfied that the prop was functioning, and moved on to charm the pastor. The sun began to dip below the fence line, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. It was time for the cake. This was the centerpiece of Marla's production. She clapped her hands, the sharp sound cutting through the chatter. "Everyone gather round," she announced. Her voice slightly slurred. The Chardonnay had been flowing since noon. Marla was not a drunk, but she was a woman who needed a chemical buffer to deal with the reality of her life. Tonight, the buffer was wearing thin, and the edges of her resentment were starting to show. The crowd obeyed. They formed a semicircle around the patio table, where a 3-tier vanilla cake sat. It was decorated with delicate sugar flowers that looked too hard to eat. Hadley appeared at my side, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. Her skin felt hot and damp. "Smile, Carrie," she whispered, digging her fingers into my bicep. "The photographer is looking." I looked at the camera lens, a black eye staring back at me. I did not blink. They lit the candles, 18 of them. The tiny flames danced in the evening breeze, struggling to stay alive. The crowd began to sing. Their voices were a discordant drone, dragging the tempo. "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you." I looked at the faces singing at me. I saw boredom. I saw obligation. I saw judgment. Marla stood at the head of the table, swaying slightly. She was holding her wine glass by the bowl, her knuckles white. She was looking at me, but her eyes were unfocused, as if she were seeing a ghost superimposed over my face. "Happy birthday. Dear Caroline." They sang. I took a breath. The heat from the candles warmed my face. "Make a wish," someone shouted from the back. I closed my eyes. For a split second, I thought about wishing for them to love me. It was a childish, stupid impulse, a reflex from a version of myself I thought I had killed years ago. I crushed the thought instantly. I did not wish for love. I wished for an exit. I blew out the candles. The smoke curled up, stinging my nose. There was a polite ripple of applause. I reached for the silver cake knife. It was heavy, the handle cold against my palm. Marla laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was a sharp, jagged bark that stopped the applause dead. "Look at her," Marla said. She was not shouting, but in the sudden silence of the backyard, her voice carried to the neighbors' fences. She gestured at me with her wineglass, red liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. So serious, always so serious. You would think she was at a funeral. "Mom," Hadley said, but her tone was not warning. It was amused. "Mom, stop. No, really," Marla continued, stepping closer. The smell of expensive grapes and bitterness wafted off her. 18 years. 18 years of this face. She leaned in, her eyes suddenly sharpening, locking onto mine. Then she said it. She said the thing that had been hanging in the air of our house for 2 decades, the unspoken frequency that vibrated in the walls. "We wish you were not born." Caroline. The words hung there, suspended in the humidity. They were not screamed in anger. They were spoken with the casual exhaustion of a confession. It was a fact, stated plainly. Like noting the weather, the backyard went silent. Not the polite silence of a pause in conversation, but the vacuum silence of a car crash before the screaming starts. The deacons' wives froze with their crackers halfway to their mouths. My father stiffened, his hand gripping the back of a lawn chair. But nobody moved. Nobody rushed forward to hush her. Nobody said, "Marla, you do not mean that." And then, Hadley giggled. It started as a snort, then blossomed into a full laugh. She covered her mouth, her eyes crinkling. "This house would be so much more peaceful without her," Hadley said. Her voice was light, teasing, as if she were joking about a puppy that chewed the furniture. God, can you imagine, Hadley continued, looking around at her friends for validation. No more gloom and doom walking down the hallway. Just peace. A few people chuckled. It was a nervous, infectious sound. The tension broke, not with sympathy, but with compliance. They were laughing because Hadley was laughing. They were laughing because it was easier to treat me as a joke than to acknowledge the monstrosity of what had just happened. I stood there, my hand still gripping the silver handle of the cake knife. I looked at the cake. I looked at the 18 extinguished candles, smoke still drifting from their black wicks. My heart did not pound. That was the strange part. I expected adrenaline. I expected the hot flush of humiliation that usually accompanied Marla's scenes, but there was nothing. My chest felt hollowed out, scraped clean. It was a sensation of absolute clarity. The tether snapped. For 18 years, I had been holding onto a rope, dragged behind the chariot of the Williams family success, trying to keep my feet on the ground. I had burned my hands raw trying to hold on, and now Marla had just taken a pair of shears and cut it. I was not falling. I was floating. I looked down at the knife in my hand. The sunlight caught the serrated edge. The laughter died down. The silence returned. But this time, it was different. It was heavy. It was fearful. They noticed the knife. I saw my father take a half step forward, his eyes wide. I saw the fear in the pastor's eyes. They thought I was going to snap. They thought the quiet, sullen girl was finally going to become the headline. They thought I was going to carve my pain into their skin. I lifted the knife. Marla flinched. Hadley stopped smiling. I turned the knife slowly in my hand, feeling its weight. Then, with deliberate, agonizing slowness, I set it down on the table. Clink. The sound of metal on china was soft, but it sounded like a gunshot in the quiet yard. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not throw the cake. I looked up. I looked straight at Marla, whose face was now slack with a delayed realization of what she had done. I shifted my gaze to Hadley, who looked annoyed that the attention had shifted to a frequency she could not control. I looked at them, and I saw them for the first time not as my family, but as strangers I had been forced to room with. They were small, they were cruel, and they were no longer my problem. Then I am dead, I said. My voice was level. It was not a question. It was not a threat. It was a statement of administrative fact. I spoke it with the same tone one might use to order a coffee or declare bankruptcy. I turned my back on them. "Caroline," my father called out. His voice was weak. "Caroline, where are you going? Cut the cake." I did not break my stride. I walked through the sliding glass doors, into the air-conditioned sanctuary of the kitchen. The sudden drop in temperature felt like walking into a morgue. It was perfect. I walked past the granite island where I had eaten thousands of silent breakfasts. I walked past the family photos on the wall, the ones where I was always standing slightly to the side. I went to the front hall closet. I did not go to my room. I did not need to pack. I opened the closet door and reached behind the winter coats that were rarely used in Missouri. I pulled out a black backpack. I had packed it 3 months ago. Inside, there was a change of clothes, jeans, a nondescript gray hoodie, and comfortable boots. There was a water bottle. There were my birth certificate and social security card, which I had slowly pilfered from my father's safe over the course of 2 weeks. And there was a thin white envelope. The envelope contained $2,400. It had taken me 4 years to save that money. Babysitting jobs for neighbors who didn't talk to Marla. Cash gifts from distant relatives that I had intercepted before my mother could bank them into my savings account to which only she had the password. Lunch money skimmed and hoarded. Every dollar was a secret. Every dollar was a brick in the wall I was building between them and me. I had been ready to leave for a long time. I had just been waiting for the sign. "We wish you were not born." The sign had been delivered in neon. I slung the backpack over one shoulder. I did not look back at the house. I did not look at the living room where the television was still playing a golf tournament on mute. I walked out the side door of the house, the one that led to the driveway, bypassing the backyard entirely. The gravel crunched softly under my party shoes. I would have to change them later. For now, I just needed distance. The evening was darkening rapidly. The streetlights of Lakeview Heights were flickering on, casting long artificial shadows across the perfect lawns. I walked down the driveway. I passed my father's BMW. I passed Hadley's convertible, which had a ribbon on it from her last birthday. I reached the sidewalk and turned left. I felt like an actor walking off a set while the cameras were still rolling. The scene back there was still going on. They were probably whispering, nervously laughing. Maybe Marla was pouring another glass of wine to wash down the awkwardness. They expected me to walk around the block and come back. They expected me to sulk in my room so they could ignore me properly. They did not understand the physics of what had just happened. You cannot kill something that has already agreed to die. I walked for 6 blocks. The sounds of the party faded. The chirping of crickets grew louder. My heels clicked on the pavement, a steady rhythm of departure. When I reached the corner of Elm and Sycamore, near the edge of the subdivision where the manicured lawns gave way to the older, rougher part of town, I stopped. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I had no social media apps to check. I had no messages to read. My digital footprint was already light, soon to be non-existent. I opened my contacts. I scrolled past Mom and Dad and Hadley. I would delete those soon. I stopped at a name that did not belong in the Williams family directory. I typed a message. My fingers were steady. "I need a place to sleep. Just for tonight." I hit send. I stood under the buzzing yellow light of the street lamp, clutching the strap of my backpack. I waited. 30 seconds passed. Then, at the far end of the street, an engine roared to life. It was a rough, throaty sound, not like the polite purr of the cars in my driveway. Twin beams of light cut through the darkness. An old sedan, battered and reliable, pulled away from the curb 2 blocks down and rolled slowly toward me. I watched the lights get closer. I did not smile. I did not cry. I just breathed in the humid air and let it fill my lungs. I was 18 years old, I was homeless, I was alone, and for the first time in my life, I was alive. The sedan smelled of stale coffee and peppermint, a scent that belonged to a life of utility rather than performance. Tessa Vaughn did not look at me as she drove. She kept her eyes on the road, her hands resting loosely on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. She was wearing a flannel shirt over a gray t-shirt, and her hair was pulled back in a messy bun that no hairspray had ever touched. She did not ask me what happened. She did not ask why I was standing on a street corner with a backpack on my 18th birthday. She did not ask why I was wearing a party dress that looked like it had been bought for a doll. She just drove. Tessa had been the guidance counselor at my high school 2 years ago, before the administration pushed her out for being too real with the students. She was the only adult who had ever looked at my grades, which were perfect, and not asked why I wasn't more like Hadley. She had just asked what I wanted to build. That was her word. Build. Not be, not do, but build. We pulled up to a small, single-story house near the industrial district. It was miles away from the manicured lawns of Lakeview Heights. Here, the grass was patchy, the fences were chain link, and the sound of the nearby highway was a constant, low-frequency hum. It was ugly. It was beautiful. Tessa killed the engine. The silence that filled the car was not heavy. It was spacious. She reached into her center console and pulled out a silver key on a plain ring. She dropped it into my palm. The metal was warm from the heat of the car. "The couch pulls out," she said. "There are clean sheets in the hall closet. Bathroom is the second door on the left." I gripped the key, my fingers curling around the jagged teeth. "Thank you," I said. My voice sounded rusty, like a hinge that hadn't been oiled in years. Tessa finally looked at me. Her face was lined, her eyes dark and intelligent. She did not offer a hug. She did not offer a platitude about how things would get better. She offered me something far more valuable: autonomy. "Sleep," she said. "We will figure the rest out tomorrow." That simple permission, the instruction to simply stop functioning for a few hours, hit me harder than Marla's cruelty. The dam behind my eyes threatened to break. I felt the sting of tears, hot and sudden, but I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. I would not cry. Crying was a leakage of energy I could not afford. I nodded, opened the car door, and stepped into my new life. The next morning, I woke up at 6. I needed to erase the Caroline Williams who existed in the cloud, the one who was tagged in Hadley's photos, the one whose data was likely being harvested by my father to boost his family man image. I took the SIM card out of my phone. It was a small piece of plastic, but it was a leash. I snapped it in half. The plastic crunched satisfyingly. I dropped the pieces into the trash can under the sink. Tessa watched me over the rim of her mug, raising an eyebrow. "Burner phone," she asked. I nodded. "Walmart opens in an hour," she said. "I will drive you." We went to the store. I bought a cheap smartphone with cash and a prepaid plan. New number, new area code, no contract, no trail. Back at Tessa's kitchen table, I opened my laptop. I did not connect to the Wi-Fi yet. I spent an hour scrubbing. I logged into every social media account I had: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. I did not just delete the apps. I went into the deep settings, the ones they hide behind 3 layers of menus, and requested permanent account deletion. I downloaded my data archives not because I wanted the memories, but because I might need evidence later, and then I pulled the trigger. "Are you sure you want to delete your account?" "This action cannot be undone. Yes, yes, yes," one by one. The windows closed. The little avatars of my face vanished. It felt like I was cleaning a dirty window, wiping away the grime to see the world clearly. I went to Amazon. I went to every online store I had ever used. I removed the Lakeview Heights address. I changed the email associated with the accounts to a new one I had just created, cvaughn22 securemail.com. Then came the banking. I logged into the joint account my parents had set up for me. It had $500 in it. I transferred every cent to a PayPal account I had set up secretly 2 years ago, and from there to an online bank that had no physical branches in Missouri. Then I called the bank and closed the joint account. Finally, there was one last loose end. I opened a blank email. I typed my father's address in the recipient line. Gordon, Williams, Realty, Net. I stared at the blinking cursor. I could have written a manifesto. I could have poured out 18 years of neglect. The way he looked through me. The way he let Marla treat me like a servant. I could have screamed in all caps. But anger is a connection. Anger implies that I still care what he thinks. I wanted indifference. I wanted the cold, hard vacuum of space. I typed, "Do not contact me. Do not look for me. Do not speak about me to anyone. I am gone." I hit send. Then I immediately went to the settings and blocked his email address. I blocked Marla's. I blocked Hadley's. I blocked the emails of the church deacons. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of amputation. I had just cut off a limb to save the body. Tessa placed a plate of scrambled eggs in front of me. "Done?" she asked. "Done," I said. "Eat," she ordered. "We have to go to the school." The visit to the high school was the first test of my new reality. I walked into the administrative office at 10 in the morning. The secretary, Mrs. Gable, looked at me over her reading glasses. She knew my mother? Everyone knew my mother. "Caroline," Mrs. Gable asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Your mother called. She said you were sick today." "I am not sick." I said. I placed my driver's license on the counter. It showed my date of birth. Yesterday. I'm 18 years old. I am withdrawing from enrollment. Effective immediately. Mrs. Gable blinked. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. "You can't just withdraw. Honey, you have 3 months left until graduation." "Your parents." "My parents are not students here," I interrupted. I am a legal adult. I do not need their permission. I need the withdrawal forms." She tried to stall. She tried to say I needed to talk to the principal. I stood there, motionless, my face a mask of polite boredom. I knew the statutes. I had read the student handbook 3 times. Eventually, she slid the papers across the desk. Her hands were shaking. Mine were steady. I signed my name, Caroline Williams. It was the last time I intended to use that signature for a very long time. "Please transfer my transcript to the Midland Community College GED program." I said, I didn't care about the high school diploma. I had the grades. I could pass the GED in my sleep. I just needed to be out of the building, out of the yearbook, out of the prom queen narrative that Hadley had dominated 4 years ago and was still visiting to relive. By noon, I was officially a dropout. By 1 o'clock, Tessa had driven me to an industrial park on the edge of town. The building was a corrugated metal shed with a sign that read, "Iron Hollow Fabrication." The air smelled of ozone, burnt oil, and metallic dust. "It's not glamorous," Tessa said as we walked toward the bay doors. "But Frank, the owner, owes me a favor, and he pays in cash if you want. Or check if you need a paper trail." "You need a paper trail." Why, I asked. "To prove you exist without them," she said. Frank was a giant of a man with grease permanently etched into the lines of his hands. He looked at me small, pale, wearing a hoodie that was too big and frowned. "She looks like she'll break if I hand her a wrench," Frank grunted. "She won't break," Tessa said. "She is made of tougher stuff than she looks." Frank hired me on the spot, minimum wage to start. My job was sweeping the metal shavings, deburring the rough edges of machined parts, and organizing the tool crib. I started that afternoon. The noise in the shop was deafening. The shriek of the CNC machines, the clang of steel on steel, the roar of the ventilation fans. It was chaos, but it was honest chaos. I picked up a file and started smoothing the edge of a steel bracket. The metal vibrated against my hand. The friction generated heat. My shoulders ached within the hour. My fingernails, which Marla had always insisted be manicured, were soon rimmed with black grease. I loved it. For the first time in my life, my mind was quiet. I could not hear Marla's voice criticizing my posture. I could not hear Hadley's laugh. There was only the task. Smooth the metal, check the edge, move to the next one. It was a meditation of labor. On my break, I checked my new phone. I had not installed the apps. but I went to the browser and looked at Hadley's public Instagram page. I knew I shouldn't, but I needed to gauge the blast radius. She had posted a story an hour ago. It was a black screen with white text. Family betrayed. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time. Prayers appreciated. I stared at the screen, betrayed, as if I were the Judas because I refused to be their punching bag. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could create a fake account. I could comment. I could tell the truth. I could scream that they were liars. I turned off the screen. No, that was what they wanted. They wanted a reaction. They wanted the drama. Drama feeds the algorithm. Drama keeps the engagement high. If I fought back, I was just a supporting character in Hadley's reality show. I would be a ghost. I would be a wall of concrete. Let them throw their accusations. They would only hit a flat, gray surface and slide off. I went back to work. I filed metal until my hands cramped. 2 days later, the twist came. I was at Tessa's house, washing the grease off my arms in the kitchen sink. There was a sharp knock at the door. Tessa opened it. 2 police officers stood there. They looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am," one of them said, "we are looking for a Caroline Williams. We have a report of a missing person, possible mental instability. The mother claims she ran off in a manic state." My heart hammered against my ribs. Marla. She was playing the concerned mother card. If they declared me unstable, they could try to drag me back. They could force a 72-hour hold. I turned off the faucet and dried my hands on a towel. I walked to the door. I stood next to Tessa. "I am Caroline Williams," I said. The officer looked at me. He saw a girl in clean jeans and a t-shirt, smelling of industrial soap, standing calmly in a quiet house. He did not see a manic episodes. "Your mother is very worried." "Miss," the officer said, "she says you ran away without—" I did not run away. I said, "I moved out. I am 18. I walked to my backpack, which was by the door. I unzipped the front pocket and pulled out a folder. I had prepared this weeks ago. I handed the officer a piece of paper. It was a notarized affidavit, signed by me and a notary public 2 days before my birthday. It stated clearly that I, Caroline Williams, being of sound mind and body, intended to leave my parents' residence upon reaching the age of majority, and that any reports of me being missing or abducted were false. I anticipated this. I said calmly, "My mother has a history of exaggeration. Here is my ID. Here is my statement. I am safe. I am employed. I am residing here with permission." The officer read the paper. He looked at his partner. He looked back at me. The tension left his shoulders. He was relieved he didn't have to drag a screaming teenager out of a house. "This looks like it is in order," he said. He handed the paper back. "Please tell Mr. and Mrs. Williams that I have been located and that I do not wish to be contacted," I said. "And officer, if they continue to send law enforcement to harass me, I will file for a restraining order." The officer nodded. He tipped his cap to Tessa. "Sorry to disturb you." "Ladies." They left. I closed the door and locked it. My knees felt weak, and I sank onto the couch. It was over. I had won the first battle. Marla had tried to use the state as a weapon, and I had disarmed her with paperwork. Tessa sat down in the armchair opposite me. She watched me for a long time. The house was quiet. The only sound, the ticking of the clock on the wall. "You did good," Tessa said. I looked at my hands. They were still stained with the ghost of oil. "They think I am crazy," I whispered. "They will tell everyone I'm crazy." Tessa leaned forward. Her eyes were fierce, burning with a hard, cold wisdom. "Let them talk. Caroline, let them tell their stories." She pointed a finger at the folder on the table. "You do not need them to believe you," she said. "You do not need the town to believe you. Belief is a feeling. Feelings change." She paused, making sure I heard the next words. "You just need evidence. You need proof. You build a fortress of facts, and you live inside it. When they come for you, and they will come for you again, you don't scream. You just show the receipts." I looked at the affidavit. I looked at my new phone. I looked at my dirty hands. I understood. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a case file, and I was going to be the most meticulously documented case file they had ever seen. I nodded. Okay, I said. Okay, Tessa replied. Now go to sleep. You have a shift at 7 tomorrow. I closed my eyes. For the first time in 18 years, I slept without dreaming of falling. The first year of my death was not poetic. It was constructed of concrete, cheap coffee, and the smell of ozone. If my life in Lakeview Heights had been a performance, my life in the shadows was a masterclass in logistics. I did not have time to mourn the girl I used to be because I was too busy building the woman who would survive her. My schedule was a mathematical equation where the variables were time, money, and sleep, and the solution was always 0. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I took the bus to Midland Community College, where I sat in the back of lecture halls, absorbing calculus and technical writing like a sponge. I did not make friends. I did not join clubs. I was there to extract a credential, nothing more. By 2 in the afternoon, I was at Iron Hollow Fabrication. I had moved up from sweeping floors to operating the drill press. The work was repetitive and loud, but it paid $12 an hour, which felt like a fortune compared to the $0 I had earned as the Williams family scapegoat. My hands, once soft and useless, grew calluses. My fingernails were permanently short. I washed them with gritty orange soap every night, but the grease settled into the lines of my palms like a tattoo. Weekends were for the third job. I drove a beat-up hatchback Tessa helped me buy for $800, delivering pizzas for a chain that promised delivery in 30 minutes or less. I learned the map of the city better than I knew the lines of my own face. I learned which porches had loose boards and which customers tipped well. I ran up staircases until my lungs burned. Every tip, every stray dollar bill, went into a jar and then into the bank. I became obsessed with the spreadsheet. I created it on a refurbished laptop I bought from a pawn shop. It was a simple grid, but to me, it was a holy text. Column A was income, column B was survival, rent, utilities, ramen noodles, bus fare, emergency fund. I tracked every single cent. If I spent $1.50 on a vending machine soda, it went on the spreadsheet. I denied myself everything that did not keep me alive or move me forward. I wore the same 3 shirts. I ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner 5 nights a week. There is a specific kind of freedom in extreme discipline, when you control what you eat, what you spend, and where you sleep. Nobody can touch you. I was not happy, but I was secure. I was a fortress of one. At the fabrication shop, I met Noah Briggs. Noah was 22, a welder with burn scars on his forearms and a silence that matched my own. He was the kind of guy who communicated in nods and gestures. He didn't talk about the weather, and he didn't talk about sports. He just worked. The arc of his welding torch was steady, a blue-white star in the dim shop. For the first 3 months, we barely spoke. Then, one night, when we were both working late on a rush order for construction brackets, the vending machine ate my last quarter. I stood there, staring at the bag of pretzels hanging on the coil, feeling a disproportionate surge of despair. It was just a bag of pretzels, but at 11 at night, after a 16-hour day, it felt like the universe was laughing at me. Noah appeared beside me. He didn't say a word. He dropped 2 quarters into the slot, punched the code, and the pretzels fell. He handed them to me. "Thank you," I said. He nodded. Then he looked at me. Really looked at me, with eyes that were gray and calm. "You work too hard." "Ellis?" he said. I had introduced myself to the shop foreman as Carrie Ellis. Ellis was Tessa's mother's middle name. It was not a legal change yet, just a layer of camouflage. If my father came looking for a Caroline Williams, he would not find her here. "I have to," I replied. Noah took a sip of his coffee. He leaned against the machine. "You running from something, or running to something?" he asked. It was the closest he ever came to a personal question. I looked at him, gauging whether he was a threat. I saw no curiosity in his face, only a mild, detached observation. "Both," I said. He nodded again, as if this made perfect sense. He crushed his empty cup and tossed it into the recycling bin. "Keep your guard up," he said. But don't forget to eat. That was it. He didn't ask about my family. He didn't ask why a girl who spoke like a suburban honor student was grinding metal in a warehouse district. He accepted me as I was a unit of labor, a fellow traveler in the dark. We started eating lunch together on the loading dock, sitting on crates, watching the trucks roll by in silence. It was the most comfortable relationship I had ever had. While I was erasing myself, Hadley was becoming a monument. I created a burner account to watch them. It was a form of self-harm, I knew. But I needed to know the enemy's movements. Hadley's follower count had exploded. She was now the face of the Stonebridge Youth Ministry. She posted photos of herself in fields of sunflowers, wearing white dresses, with captions about grace and forgiveness. Family is the anchor that holds us in the storm. She wrote in one post. It had 4,000 likes. In another video, she sat on the edge of her bed, looking teary-eyed. Sometimes, the people we love choose to walk in darkness, she said to the camera. We can only pray they find the light. Miss you, little sister. I watched it while sitting on my mattress on the floor of the room I rented above a bakery. The room smelled perpetually of yeast and exhaust. I watched her perform her grief. It was flawless. She had turned my absence into content. She was monetizing the tragedy I had handed her. I did not comment. I did not dislike the video. I took a screenshot. I printed it out at the library and added it to the box. The box was a plastic storage bin I kept under my bed. It was my insurance policy. Inside, I kept everything. The affidavit I showed the police, the receipt for my burner phone, the screenshots of Hadley's passive-aggressive posts, the emails from the neighbors who had seen Marla drinking before noon. Tessa had told me, "You don't need them to believe you. You just need evidence." So I became an archivist of my own erasure. 6 months into my new life, the test came. I was reviewing my credit report. I had learned about credit scores in an online finance forum, and I checked mine religiously every month. I wanted a perfect score so I could eventually buy a house that no one could kick me out of. I logged in and saw a drop. 30 points. My stomach turned over. I scrolled down to the active accounts section. There it was. A credit card, with a limit of $10,000. The balance was $4,000. It had been opened 3 years ago. I was 15 then. I could not legally open a credit card at 15. I clicked on the details. The billing address was my parents' house in Lakeview Heights. The authorized user was Gordon Williams. My father had opened a card in my name, likely as a credit-building tool for me, or perhaps to hide debt from Marla, or maybe just to improve the family's overall credit utilization ratio. He was using my Social Security number as an extension of his own wallet. He was buying golf clubs or client dinners on a card that bore my name, assuming I would never know, or that I would be grateful he was managing my financial future. Rage flared in my chest. Hot and white, it was a violation. Even after I had left, even after I had declared myself dead to them, he was still using my corpse to improve his credit score. I reached for the phone to call him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him I knew. Then I stopped. No. Screaming is what children do. I put the phone down. I took a deep breath. I channeled the coldness of the metal shop. I called the bank instead. I navigated the automated menu until I got a human being. "This is the fraud department. How can I help you?" the voice asked. "My name is Caroline Williams," I said, my voice steady and professional. "I am looking at my credit report, and I see a credit card account that I did not open. I was a minor when this account was established. I did not sign for it. I do not have possession of the card." The agent on the other end paused. "That is a serious claim. Miss Williams, do you know who might have opened it?" "I do." I said, "But that is irrelevant to the fact that it is fraud. I want to dispute the debt. I want the account closed immediately, and I want a written confirmation of this dispute sent to my current address, which is not the address on file." I did not protect him. I did not say, "It's my father. Please be gentle." I treated him exactly as he was an identity thief. The bank launched an investigation. Because I was a minor when the card was opened, the law was on my side. They froze the account. They sent a letter to the billing address my father's house demanding payment and notifying him of the fraud alert. I imagined Gordon opening that letter. I imagined the color draining from his face. He would know it was me. He would know that I wasn't just hiding. I was watching. I saved every letter the bank sent me. I printed the credit report. I added them to the box under the bed. A week later, I was sitting on the loading dock with Noah. The sun was setting, painting the industrial park in shades of rust and gold. I was tired. The fight with the bank had drained me more than I admitted. I told Noah about the card. I didn't tell him who did it, just that someone from my past had tried to use my name. I wanted to burn his house down. I admitted, staring at my work boots. Figuratively, I wanted to call him and scream until my throat bled. Noah took a bite of his sandwich. He chewed slowly, looking out at the horizon. Screaming warns them, he said. He turned to look at me. His face was smudged with soot, but his eyes were clear. You don't need revenge, Ellis. Revenge is messy. It takes too much energy. He gestured to the world around us, the grinding gears of the city. People like that. The ones who use people. They always trip. They get arrogant. They think the laws of physics don't apply to them. He crumpled his sandwich wrapper. You don't need to push them, he said. You just need to be standing in the right spot when they slip. And when they do, you just make sure you are watching. I looked at him. I thought about the spreadsheet. I thought about the box under my bed. I thought about the silent, invisible empire I was building. Brick by brick, dollar by dollar. He was right. I didn't need to be the hunter. I just need to be the witness. I am standing in the right spot. I said. Noah smiled. It was a rare, small thing. Gone in a second. Good, he said. Now let's go. Break is over. We went back inside. The welding torches flared to life. I pulled my mask down, and the world turned green and dark. I was ready to wait. I had time. By the third year, I had stopped looking over my shoulder. The paranoia that had defined my first 18 months of freedom had calcified into something far more useful: awareness. I was no longer a fugitive running from a crime I did not commit. I was a ghost who had learned to haunt her own life, moving through the world with a solidity that the girl in the blue party dress had never possessed. I had traded the grease-stained floor of the fabrication shop for the climate-controlled precision of Northlane systems. The transition was not luck. It was the result of 2 years of sleeping 4 hours a night and drinking coffee that tasted like battery acid. I had walked across the stage at Midland Community College not to applause, but to the satisfaction of a transaction completed. I handed them my tuition. They handed me a certification in mechanical engineering technology. Northline Systems was a different beast than the iron shop. It was a place of aerospace tolerances and government contracts. The floors were white epoxy. The air smelled of sterile coolant and ozone. I was one of 3 women on the floor, and the only one under 30. I did not care. I wore my safety glasses and my steel-toed boots like a uniform. I spoke the language of microns and tolerance stacks. When I told a 50-year-old machinist that his calibration was off by 2/10,000ths of an inch, I did not ask him to check it. I told him to fix it. They paid me $45,000 a year. It was not a fortune to the people in Lakeview Heights, but to me, it was empire money. It was health insurance. It was a dental plan. It was a 401k match. Every pay stub was a brick in the wall that kept the Williams family out. Noah and I moved in together that spring. It was not a grand romantic gesture involving rose petals or a diamond ring. It was a logistical decision discussed over lukewarm Thai food on a Tuesday. Our leases were up. The rent in the city was climbing. We calculated the savings of a shared utility bill. We looked at the numbers, and the numbers made sense. We found a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex that was boring enough to be safe. It had beige carpets and white walls. We did not share a bedroom. Noah took the larger room because he had more tools. I took the smaller one because I needed less space to feel secure. Living with Noah was like living with a very considerate ghost. We existed in parallel. We shared the coffee maker and the chore wheel. We split the grocery bill down to the penny. There were no arguments about whose turn it was to do the dishes, because we both operated on a code of absolute personal responsibility. Sometimes, late at night, We would sit on the balcony and watch the traffic on the interstate. We did not talk about feelings. We talked about work. We talked about the structural integrity of the balcony railing. It was the healthiest relationship I had ever had, because it demanded nothing from me but my share of the rent and basic human decency. But while my life was becoming quiet and concrete, the life I had left behind was becoming a loud, digital circus. I still checked. It was my morning ritual. Like brushing my teeth, I would log into my burner account and check the pulse of the infection. Hadley had crossed the threshold of 200,000 followers. She had pivoted. The party girl of her early 20s had vanished, replaced by a curated image of wholesome, faith-based femininity. She wore linen dresses. She posted videos of herself baking bread in a kitchen that cost more than my entire education. She had sponsorships with a vitamin company and a brand that sold ethical jewelry. Her caption on a photo of her holding a Bible and a latte read, "God gives his hardest battles to his strongest soldiers. Praying for restoration today." I knew exactly what battle she was referring to. It was me. I was the battle. I was the invisible antagonist in her hero's journey. She never named me, of course. Naming me would make me real. It would give me a voice. She preferred me as an abstract concept, a lost sister, or a broken branch on the family tree. Marla had found her own stage. She had become a prominent voice in the Stonebridge Women's Ministry. She wrote long, winding blog posts about the pain of motherhood when a child goes astray. She painted herself as the long-suffering matriarch, the mother who keeps the porch light on for the prodigal daughter. I read one of her posts while eating a bagel in the break room at Northline. We gave her everything. Marla had written, we gave her love, structure, and faith. But sometimes, a soul just wants to wander in the dark. We can only wait and pray. I almost laughed. The audacity was breathtaking. She was rewriting history in real time, turning her cruelty into martyrdom. She was getting sympathy likes from strangers for a wound she had inflicted on herself. I closed the browser. I did not feel anger anymore. I felt the cold detachment of a scientist observing a specimen in a jar. They were performing. I was living. That year, I decided to bury Caroline Williams for good. I hired a lawyer. He was a tired man with a cheap suit and an office in a strip mall, but he knew the paperwork. I told him I wanted a name change. I told him I wanted it sealed if possible. But if not, I wanted it done so quietly that even the clerks wouldn't notice. I chose the name Vaughn. It was Tessa's last name. I had not asked her permission, but when I told her, she had just nodded and taken a long drag of her cigarette. You are honoring the only mother you actually had. She had said, that is fine. Just do not dishonor the name by getting arrested. On the day the judge signed the order, I felt a physical shift in the atmosphere. The gavel hit the wood block, and Caroline Williams ceased to exist as a legal entity. She was just a ghost in a yearbook now. I walked out of the courthouse as Caroline Vaughn. I went to the DMV. I went to the Social Security office. I went to HR at Northline. I spent weeks updating every single record. It was tedious, administrative work, but I loved every second of it. Every form I signed was a shovel of dirt on the grave of the girl who was not supposed to be born. With my new identity and my steady income, I made the biggest move of all. I bought a house. It was not a mansion in Lakeview Heights. It was a 900-square-foot bungalow on the edge of town. Built in the 50s, the roof needed work. The bathroom tiles were a hideous shade of pink. The backyard was mostly weeds, but the deed had one name on it, Caroline Vaughn. I put down 20%. I had saved every penny from the pizza delivery job, every overtime hour at the shop, every bonus from Northline. I signed the mortgage papers with a hand that did not shake. The first night I spent in the house, I did not own a bed. I slept on a sleeping bag in the middle of the living room floor. The house smelled of dust and old wood. The silence was absolute. I locked the front door. I checked the back door. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan. I owned the ceiling. I owned the floorboards. I owned the air inside these walls. If Marla Williams walked up to my front porch, I could call the police and have her removed for trespassing. The thought was so intoxicating it was better than wine. But peace is a fragile thing when your family is a parasite looking for a host. 2 weeks after I moved in, I received an email. It came to my secure email address, the one I used only for banking and official business. It was an automated alert from a data privacy service. I subscribed to a service that scanned the dark web and people search sites for my information. Alert data removal request challenged. I opened the email. My heart gave a single, hard thump against my ribs. Someone had submitted a request to a data broker to purchase the current address and contact information for a Caroline Williams with my birth date. The service had blocked it because I had opted out, but the requester was persistent. They had paid for a premium search. They were hunting. I sat up at my kitchen table. The morning sun was shining on the hideous pink tiles I had not yet replaced. I knew it was not a random scammer. Scammers do not pay premium fees for specific data. Scammers cast wide nets. This was a spear fishing expedition. I called Noah. He was at the shop, but he picked up on the second ring. They are looking. I said, who? He asked. My parents? Or someone they hired? I just got a ping on the privacy shield. Someone is trying to buy my address. There was a silence on the line. I could hear the hum of the workshop in the background. Why now? Noah asked. It has been 3 years. I looked out the window at my overgrown backyard. I saw a robin pulling a worm from the ground. Because they need something. I said, they do not look for me because they miss me. Noah, they look for me because they have run out of supply. Maybe the money is tight. Maybe the reputation is slipping. Maybe Hadley needs a new storyline. Keep the shields up. Noah said, do not engage. I am not engaging. I said, I am fortifying. I hung up. I spent the next 3 hours going through my digital defenses. I changed passwords. I set up a new P.O. box for my mail so nothing would come to the house. I notified the security desk at Northline that I had a potential stalker situation and that no information about my employment was to be released. I was ready. I had built a fortress, but fortresses are designed to be besieged. 5 days later, on a Tuesday evening, I was painting the living room walls a soft gray. I wanted to cover up the yellowed wallpaper that had been there since the Nixon administration. My phone was sitting on the ladder, playing a podcast about engineering disasters. The podcast stopped. The screen lit up. It was not a call. It was a notification from a messaging app I hadn't used in years but hadn't deleted, because it was tied to my old number, the number I thought was dead, the number I thought was buried. But somehow, in some database I had missed, a link had remained. You have been added to a group. I stared at the screen. The paintbrush dripped gray paint onto the drop cloth. The group name appeared in bold letters. Hadley Preston Wedding. My stomach dropped. Preston, the boy from the party, the boy Hadley had been laughing with while I held the knife. Then, the messages started flooding in. Gordon Williams. Finally found a number that works. Marla Williams. We know you see this. Don't pretend. And then, the name I had legally destroyed, the name that belonged to a victim, not a homeowner, flashed on the screen. Hadley Williams. Add Caroline back. She needs to see this. The name Williams. It looked like a curse word. I stood there, the smell of fresh paint filling my nose. I had a house. I had a career. I had a new name. I had a life that was clean and orderly and mine, and with one digital ping, they had dragged the mud right back into my living room. I put the paintbrush down. I wiped my hands on a rag. I did not leave the group. I watched. Noah was right. They needed me, and I was going to wait to find out exactly what the price tag was. The notification light on my phone pulsed with a frantic, stroboscopic rhythm. It was a digital heartbeat that did not belong to me. I sat on the floor of my half-painted living room, the smell of drying gray latex thick in the air, and stared at the screen. Hadley Preston Wedding. The group chat had 4 members. Marla, Gordon, Hadley, and me. A video file began to autoplay. It was a masterpiece of manufactured intimacy. A drone shot swept over a cliffside at sunset. Music swelled something acoustic and generic that probably cost $500 to license. There was Hadley, wearing a white dress that moved perfectly in the wind, standing opposite Preston. Preston dropped to one knee. Hadley covered her mouth with both hands in a gesture of practiced shock. The ring glinted in the dying light. They embraced. The drone pulled back, revealing the vast ocean, making them look like the only two people on Earth. It was beautiful. It was expensive. It was a lie. I knew that cliff. It was 3 states away. They had flown there just for the content. The video ended, and the text messages began to fire like machine gun rounds. Marla Williams, isn't it breathtaking? Our baby is getting married. Marla Williams. The wedding is in 6 months. Stonebridge Main Sanctuary. Reception at the country club. Marla Williams. We are doing a community of love theme. Everyone contributes. It is modern. I did not type. I watched the bubbles appear and disappear as Marla typed, deleted, and retyped. She was calibrating her pitch. Marla Williams. We have calculated the costs. To make this worthy of your sister, we are asking each family member to pledge $18,000. That covers the venue and the catering. $18,000. I stared at the number. It was precise. It was not around 20,000 or a hopeful 10,000. It was 18. That meant they had already spent the budget, realized they were short, and divided the deficit by the number of people they thought they could squeeze. Marla Williams. We saw your LinkedIn. Caroline. We know you are at Northline. We know engineers make good money. God has blessed you, and now you can bless your sister. They had been watching. They knew my title. They knew my company. They had probably calculated my salary based on Glassdoor averages. Gordon Williams. Do not leave us on red. It is rude. Gordon Williams. You have been gone 5 years. You have not paid a dime into this family. Consider this back rent. The audacity was so pure it was almost impressive. Back rent. For the room I was verbally evicted from, for the food I was too anxious to eat, I felt a coldness spread from my chest to my fingertips. It was the same coldness I felt in the metal shop, the absolute zero of indifference. I still did not type. My silence was a vacuum, and they were rushing to fill it with noise. Hadley Williams, seriously. Are you going to ghost us now? Hadley Williams, Mom and Dad are stressed. Preston's family is chipping in huge. Do not make us look poor. Caroline. Hadley Williams, you always ruin everything. I put the phone down on the floor. I picked up my coffee mug. I took a sip. It was lukewarm. Then, the vibration buzzed against the floorboards again. A long, angry buzz. Hadley Williams, we wish you were not born. There it was. The greatest hit. The line that had launched me out the door 5 years ago. She had kept it in her pocket, ready to deploy the moment I didn't comply. She typed it as casually as she might type a grocery list. She expected me to break. She expected the old Caroline, the one who craved their approval like oxygen, to panic. She expected me to type, I am sorry, and how do I send the check? But the old Caroline was dead. She died in a backyard in Lakeview Heights. The woman sitting in this house was Caroline Vaughn, and Caroline Vaughn did not negotiate with terrorists. I picked up the phone. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I did not feel sad. I did not feel angry. I felt nothing but the hollow echo of a vacant room. I typed 2 letters. No. I hit send. The reaction was instantaneous. Marla Williams. Excuse me, Gordon Williams, you ungrateful little brat. You think you are better than us. Marla Williams. After everything we sacrificed, we gave you life. Hadley Williams, you are so selfish. I knew it. I told Preston you were a monster. Gordon Williams. If you do not send that money, do not bother calling yourself a Williams. Marla Williams. We will come to your work. Do not think we won't. We will speak to your boss. The threats escalated. They were throwing everything at the wall: guilt, shame, intimidation. It was a tantrum. It was the rage of a predator that realizes the prey has grown teeth. I did not reply again. I started the protocol. First, screenshot, volume down, and power button. Click. I scrolled up. Click. Marla's demand for $18,000. Click. Gordon's threat about back rent. Click. Hadley's we wish you were not born. Click. Gordon's threat to come to my workplace. I captured every pixel of their toxicity. I opened my cloud storage app. I created a new folder case file. 2025. Reappearance. I uploaded the images. I waited for the blue checkmark that meant the data was safe on a server farm in another state. Then, another notification pinged. This one was different. It was the chime of a cash transfer app. Hadley requests $18,000. There was a note attached to the request. For the wedding, don't embarrass me. Just pay it, and we will let you be. I stared at it. She had just handed me the smoking gun. If it had just been text messages, they could claim it was a family argument. They could claim it was emotional venting. But a formal payment request with a specific dollar amount, that was a transaction. That was an attempt to extort money in exchange for letting me be. It was harassment with a price tag. I took a screenshot of the request. I uploaded it. Then, I went back to the group chat. I tapped the 3 dots in the corner. Block group. I went to their individual contacts. Block Marla. Block Gordon. Block Hadley. The strobe light of notifications finally stopped. The room went quiet again, but I knew this was not the end. Blocking a number is like closing a window. It does not stop someone from throwing a brick through it. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I opened the junk drawer where I kept my emergency supplies. I took out a fresh SIM card kit. I popped the tray out of my phone. I removed the SIM card that they had somehow found. I dropped it into a glass of water on the counter. I watched it sink. I inserted the new card. I went through the activation process. It took 10 minutes. 10 minutes to disappear again. Then I opened my laptop. I composed an email to the head of legal at Northline Systems. I had met him once at a company mixer, a sharp, terrifying man named Mr. Henderson, who seemed to enjoy crushing patent trolls. Subject harassment. Potential security threat at Northline facility. Dear Mr. Henderson, I am writing to inform you of a potential security issue regarding my estranged family. They have made explicit threats to visit the Northline facility to harass me regarding a personal financial matter. I have documentation of these threats. I am formally requesting that if any individuals identifying themselves as the Williams family attempt to enter the premises or contact the company regarding my employment, they be directed immediately to legal counsel and barred from entry. Attached are the relevant screenshots documenting the extortion attempt and the threat to workplace peace. Respectfully, Caroline Vaughn. Senior Technician. I hit send. I was not hiding anymore. I was engaging the machinery of the corporate world to crush a suburban nuisance. Northline Systems had military contracts. They had security guards with tactical training. If Gordon Williams wanted to show up and yell about back rent, he was going to find himself face-to-face with a trespass order and a very large man with a taser. The front door opened. Noah walked in. He was wearing his welding jacket, smelling of burnt metal and cold air. He saw me standing in the kitchen, the laptop open, the phone dismantled on the counter. He saw the look on my face. They found you, he said. It was not a question. I nodded. They wanted $18,000 for Hadley's wedding. Noah hung his jacket on the hook. He walked over to the fridge and took out 2 beers. He cracked one open and handed it to me. He cracked the second one and took a long drink. Did you pay? He asked. Though he knew the answer. I laughed. A dry, sharp sound. I blocked them. I changed the number. I reported them to Northline Security. Noah leaned against the counter. He looked at the screenshots I had left up on the laptop screen. He read Hadley's message. We wish you were not born. He did not flinch. He just nodded slowly. They are desperate, he said. They are insane. I corrected. No, Noah said. He set his beer down. Look at the timestamp. They messaged you all at once. It was coordinated. This isn't just a family fight. Caroline, this is a fundraising campaign. They are broke. I thought about the community of love theme. I thought about the credit card fraud. I thought about the sheer specificity of the $18,000. You think they are underwater, I asked. I think they are drowning, Noah said. And they see you as a life raft. He looked me in the eye. You just popped the raft. Ellis. I took a sip of the beer. It was cold and bitter. Good. So what happens now, I asked. They can't get the money. They can't get to me at work. Noah turned the laptop around so he could see the screen better. He pointed at Hadley's follower count on the sidebar of the browser, which I had checked earlier. 200,000 people. He looked at me with a grim, heavy seriousness. You need to understand something, he said. To people like them, attention is a currency just as real as the dollar. He tapped the screen. If they can't take your money, they will take your reputation. They will sell a story about how you destroyed them. They will monetize the victimhood. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the drafty house. Let them try. I said, I have the receipts. Noah closed the laptop. Then keep them safe, he said. Because the court of public opinion doesn't care about evidence. It cares about who cries the loudest. And your sister. She is a professional crier. I looked at the black screen of the laptop. I knew he was right. I had cut the wire, but the bomb was still ticking. I am ready, I said. Noah picked up his beer again. I know, he said, but get some sleep. The war starts tomorrow. The war did not start with a scream. It started with a notification chime at 6 a.m, piercing the silence of my bedroom like a needle. Noah was already awake, lying still beside me. He reached for his phone on the nightstand, his movements slow and deliberate. He looked at the screen, and his jaw muscles tightened. He turned the screen toward me without saying a word. It was Hadley. She was live on Instagram, but the video had already been reposted, stitched, and shared thousands of times while we slept. The thumbnail showed her face, swollen and blotchy, devoid of makeup, a calculated aesthetic of raw vulnerability. I pressed play. I did not want to do this, Hadley whispered into the camera, her voice cracking perfectly on the last word. I really wanted to protect her, but I cannot let my family suffer anymore. She wiped a tear that tracked slowly down her cheek. My sister, Caroline, she left us 5 years ago. We thought she needed space, but we found out she took more than space. She paused for effect. She took our savings, my parents' retirement fund, money meant for my medical bills when I was sick. I sat up in bed, the sheets pooling around my waist. Medical bills. Hadley had never been sick a day in her life, unless you counted a hangover as an illness. And the theft I had left with $2,400 of my own babysitting money. And now, Hadley continued, looking directly into the lens, she has resurfaced just to try and ruin my wedding. She is demanding money from us to stay away. She is blackmailing us. The lie was so inverted, so perfectly mirror-imaged to the truth, that I felt a moment of vertigo. She was accusing me of the exact crime she was committing. It was brilliant. It was sociopathic. I just want peace. Hadley sobbed. I just want to get married without being afraid of my own sister. I scrolled down to the comments. It was a digital lynch mob. What a monster. How can someone do that to their own family? Drop her. We just want to talk. Protective sister mode. Activate. I closed the app. My hands were cold. This is the narrative, I said. My voice sounded flat in the quiet room. She is the victim. I am the predator. Noah sat up. He did not offer empty comfort. He went into tactical mode. Do not respond, he said. Anything you say makes you look defensive. We catalog it. We spent the morning in a war room atmosphere. I did not go to work immediately. I called Northline and told my supervisor I would be late. Marla had opened the second front, on the private Facebook group for the Stonebridge Community Church, which had leaked almost immediately. She had posted a prayer request. Please pray for our daughter Caroline, who has lost her way and turned against those who love her. The devil works through greed. Below the prayer was a link, the Williams Family Healing Fund. It was a crowdfunding page. The description claimed the family was in financial distress due to legal fees and theft recovery, caused by an estranged family member. The goal was $20,000. They had already raised $4,000. People were donating to help them abuse me. I took screenshots of the fundraiser. I took screenshots of the timestamps. I downloaded Hadley's video and saved it to the encrypted drive. Then, the first stone hit the window, not a literal stone, but a digital one that impacted my real life. My phone buzzed with an alert from Google Maps. New review for Northline Systems. 1 star. This company employs Caroline Vaughn, a thief and an abuser of the elderly. Fire her or we boycott. Another one followed 3 minutes later. Unsafe environment. They hire criminals. They had found me. The privacy shield had held my address. But my LinkedIn was harder to scrub completely before the mob found it. Someone had connected Caroline Vaughn to the company. I felt a surge of nausea. This was my career. This was the one thing I had built that was purely mine. Get dressed, Noah said. We are going to the police station first. Then we go to your work. We drove to the precinct. I sat across from a desk sergeant who looked bored until I laid out the file. I showed him the payment request for $18,000. I showed him the threats. I showed him the false accusations of theft. I want to file a report for harassment, cyberstalking, and attempted extortion. I said, he took the report. He gave me a case number. It was a small piece of paper, but it was a legal anchor. When we arrived at Northline Systems, I did not hide. I walked through the front doors with my head high, though my stomach was twisting in knots. I went straight to the legal department. Mr. Henderson was a man who wore suits that cost more than my car. He listened to me in his glass-walled office. I did not cry. I did not beg. I laid out the facts. My family is attempting to extort me. I said, I refused. Now they are attacking the company's reputation to pressure me. Here is the police report case number. Here are the screenshots of the fraudulent reviews. Here is proof that I have no criminal record. Mr. Henderson looked at the 1-star reviews on his tablet. He frowned. We do not like it when outside noise interferes with our operations. Ms. Vaughn, he said. He tapped his intercom. Get it on the line, and get me a draft for a cease and desist order. He looked back at me. We will flag the reviews as spam and coordinated harassment. Google usually removes them if we show the pattern, and security at the gate will be notified. No one with the last name Williams gets past the turnstile. I breathed for the first time in 6 hours. Thank you, I said. You are a good engineer. Caroline, he said, we protect our assets. I went back to my desk. I put on my noise-canceling headphones. I focused on a schematic for a hydraulic valve. I worked with a ferocity that scared me. I needed the geometry, the math, the absolute truth of physics to ground me while the world outside burned with lies. But the world outside was getting closer. That evening, a Twitter account with a generic anime avatar posted a photo. It was a picture of a street sign. Elm Street. I think the thief lives near here. The caption read, Anyone want to go caroling? It was the corner of my block. My blood ran cold. They hadn't found the house number yet, but they were in the neighborhood. I showed Noah. We are not sleeping there tonight, he said. We packed a bag. We drove to a motel 2 towns over. It was a cheap room with fluorescent lights and a smell of lemon cleaner. I lay on the stiff bed, staring at the ceiling. I am not afraid of them. I whispered, I am angry. Good, Noah said from the other bed. Anger is fuel. Fear is a brake. The next day, the tension broke. I was at my desk at Northline when the internal chat system blinked. Security alert disturbance in lobby. My heart hammered. I stood up. I walked to the window that overlooked the main entrance plaza. There was a car parked haphazardly in the loading zone. A man was standing at the glass doors, gesturing wildly. It was Gordon. He looked older than I remembered. His suit was rumpled. His face was red. He was screaming at the security guard, a man named Marcus, who was 6'4" and built like a tank. I did not go down. I watched from the safety of the second floor. I could not hear him through the glass. But I didn't need to. I knew the script. She is my daughter. I have a right. She stole from me. Marcus did not budge. He pointed to the parking lot. Gordon stepped forward, poking Marcus in the chest. That was a mistake. Marcus stepped in. It was a fluid, professional motion. He didn't hit Gordon. He simply occupied the space Gordon was standing in, forcing him back. Then, Gordon lost it. He threw his briefcase on the ground. He kicked the glass door. Thief, I could see his mouth form the word. She is a thief. 2 more guards appeared. They flanked Gordon. They were not violent, but they were immovable. They escorted him toward his car. Gordon was flailing, shouting at the building, shouting at the sky. He looked small. He looked pathetic. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who had realized he had no power left. Up in the office, people were whispering, "Is that the dad? Why is he screaming? The guy looks crazy." I turned away from the window. I sat down at my computer. I saved the file I was working on. 10 minutes later, Mr. Henderson called me. "We have him on 4K video," Henderson said, his voice sounding pleased. "Criminal trespass, disorderly conduct. We are pressing charges on behalf of the company. It reinforces your harassment claim. Can I have a copy of the footage I asked? For your legal files." Yes, I got the file. It was crisp, high-definition audio and video. You could hear Gordon screaming, "I own her, she owes me." You could hear Marcus calmly telling him to leave the property. I saved it to the case file. But the world is a leaky place. By that evening, a clip of the incident had surfaced on a local community subreddit. It wasn't the full security tape. It was cell phone footage taken by a delivery driver who had been standing in the lobby. The title was "Boomer Meltdown at Northline Systems Today." It showed a well-dressed man screaming at a security guard, looking deranged, demanding to see a Caroline, who he claimed owed him back rent for being born. The internet, fickle and chaotic, paused. The comments on Hadley's crying video started to shift. "Wait, is this the dad? He sounds unhinged. He said she owes him rent for being born. Who says that Northline is a defense contractor? They don't just protect thieves. Something doesn't add up." The narrative crack became a fissure. We went back to our house that night. The police had patrolled the area because of the doxing report, and the anime avatar account had been suspended. It felt safe enough. I sat on the couch, exhausted. My bones ached. I had survived the digital stoning. I had survived the physical confrontation. I opened my email to check for any updates from the lawyer. There was one new message in my inbox. It was not from the lawyer. It was from a personal address. From a Mercer Private Mercer Holdings. Annette. Subject inquiry regarding Hadley Williams. I froze. Mercer. Preston's last name. I opened the email. The text was sparse, elegant, and terrifyingly direct. Ms. Vaughn. My name is Evelyn Mercer. I am Preston's mother. I have seen the videos. I have seen the fundraising links. And I have seen a video of a man I believe to be your father screaming at a commercial building. I am a woman who prefers facts to theater. If what your sister says is true, I will ensure my son never speaks to you. If what she says is false, I need to know before he marries into a family that operates this way. I am not asking for your side of the story. I am asking for evidence. Can we talk, Evelyn? I read it twice. This was not a threat. This was an audit. I looked at Noah. He was asleep on the armchair, a baseball bat leaning against the wall next to him. I looked at the laptop, where the folder case file, 2025, reappearance sat full of screenshots, recordings, and police reports. I typed a reply. Ms. Mercer, I do not have a story. I have a timeline. Name the place. I hit send. The mob had tried to bury me with noise, but now someone had arrived who was interested in the quiet, brutal signal of the truth, and I was ready to broadcast. I met Evelyn Mercer at a place that did not serve coffee in cardboard cups. It was a tea house in the financial district, a place of hushed tones, velvet chairs, and china that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I arrived 10 minutes early. Evelyn was already there. She was a woman carved from ice and old money. She wore a charcoal suit that fit her with architectural precision. Her hair was silver, cut in a sharp bob that framed a face which had seen everything and was impressed by none of it. She did not smile when I approached. She simply gestured to the empty chair opposite her. "Sit," she said. I sat. I did not offer a handshake. I sensed she was not a woman who touched strangers. "You are the sister," she stated. It was not a question. "I am Caroline Vaughn," I said. "I used to be Caroline Williams. But yes, I am the sister." Evelyn picked up her teacup. She took a sip, her eyes never leaving my face. They were gray, like Noah's, But where Noah's eyes were calm, hers were calculating. She was assessing me not as a human being, but as a liability. "My son is in love with Hadley," Evelyn said, at least, he is in love with the version of Hadley she presents on the internet. The pious, suffering, beautiful victim. She set the cup down. The clink was the only sound at our table. "But I run a family office that manages assets in the 9 figures. Caroline. We do not make investments based on feelings. We make them based on due diligence. And right now, the Williams family looks like a very bad investment." She leaned forward slightly. "I saw the video of your father screaming at your office building. I saw the fundraising page. I read the reviews." She paused. "I do not care about your family drama. Caroline, I do not care who stole whose Barbie doll when you were 6. I care about the name Mercer. If Hadley is telling the truth, and you are a thief and a blackmailer, I will tell Preston to break the engagement and I will ensure you are prosecuted." She let that hang in the air. "But," she continued, her voice dropping an octave, becoming deadlier, "if Hadley is lying, if she is dragging my son into a fraud, then I will scorch the earth she stands on." I reached into my bag. I pulled out a black USB drive and a thick manila folder. I placed them on the table between us. "I do not want your sympathy, Ms. Mercer," I said. "And I do not care about your son's engagement. I just want to be left alone." I tapped the folder. "This is the timeline. This is the police report from 5 years ago clearing me of running away. This is the credit card fraud report I filed against my father 3 years ago. This is the screenshot of the payment request for $18,000 sent last week. And this," I pointed to the USB drive, "is the security footage from Northline Systems, along with the audio of the voicemail Hadley left me on my 18th birthday." Evelyn looked at the pile. She did not open it. She simply nodded. "I have a team for this," she said. She signaled to a man sitting 3 tables away. He was dressed in a nondescript suit, looking like he was working on a laptop. He stood up immediately, walked over, took the folder and the drive, and walked out of the tea house without a word. "My forensic accounting and digital reputation team," Evelyn explained. "They are very thorough. If there is a digital footprint, they will find it, even the ones your sister thinks she deleted." We sat in silence for a moment. "Why," Evelyn asked suddenly, "why did you not just pay them? It would have been cheaper than a lawyer." "Because," I said, looking her dead in the eye, "if you pay the alligator, it does not go away. It just learns that you are food." Evelyn's lips twitched. It was the closest thing to a smile I would ever see from her. "Smart girl," she said. 3 days later, I was summoned to the Mercer Holdings headquarters. It was a glass tower downtown that made Northline Systems look like a shed. I was escorted to a conference room on the 42nd floor. The view was breathtaking, reducing the city to a grid of toys. Evelyn was at the head of a long mahogany table. To her right sat the man from the tea house, whose name I learned was Mr. Sterling. To her left was a large screen. "Sit," Evelyn said. I took a seat. "Mr. Sterling, show her what we found." Sterling tapped his tablet. The screen came to life. "We analyzed the metadata of the messages sent to you." Sterling began, his voice dry and clinical. "We cross-referenced them with the social media activity of Hadley and Marla Williams. We also ran a recovery algorithm on Hadley's cloud backups. It appears she uses a weak password and has enabled auto-backup for her drafts folder on TikTok and Instagram." He looked at me. "She deletes a lot of takes before she posts the final version, but the cloud keeps everything for 30 days. Sterling pressed a button. A video began to play. It was Hadley. She was sitting in her bedroom. The ring light reflected in her eyes. She was not crying. She looked annoyed. She was holding a bottle of eye drops. "Okay, take 4, Hadley said to the camera, or perhaps to herself. "I need to look sadder." The engagement on the last sad post was up 40%. "If I can get this crying video to hit 1 million views, the GoFundMe will hit the target by Friday." She tilted her head back and squeezed 2 drops of saline into her eyes. She blinked rapidly until they spilled over her cheeks. Then, she adopted the pained expression I had seen on the live stream. My sister is just so cruel, she began to act. Sterling paused the video. We found 12 clips like this, Sterling said. Staged grief, discussions about engagement metrics, and this one, he played another clip. This one was recorded vertically, likely a FaceTime screen recording she had saved. Hadley was talking to Marla. Mom. Stop worrying, Hadley was saying, picking at her nails. She won't sue. She doesn't have the guts. We just keep pushing the narrative. Once we get the money for the wedding, we can ghost her again. Just stick to the script. She is the villain. We are the saints. I felt a cold vindication settle in my stomach. It was one thing to know they were lying. It was another to see the backstage mechanics of the lie. But there is more, Sterling said. He pulled up a chat log. It was a text thread between Hadley and Preston. My stomach tightened. Preston was part of this Hadley babe. Don't worry about the rumors. She is just jealous. Preston. My mom is asking questions. She saw the video of your dad. Hadley. My dad is just protective. Look, Caroline changed her name to Vaughn. Who does that? Criminals do that. Preston. She changed her name Hadley. Yeah. Probably to hide from debt collectors. We should just start telling people she is running from loan sharks. That explains why she needs money from us. Evelyn cleared her throat. The sound cut through the room like a gavel. Sterling turned off the screen. My son, Evelyn said, her voice quiet, is a fool for a pretty face. But he is not malicious. He genuinely believes you are a criminal because Hadley has constructed a reality where that is the only explanation for your absence. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city she practically owned. I built this company on transparency. Caroline, my reputation is currency. If Preston marries into a family that stages fraud for internet points, if he marries a woman who calls her sister a criminal to cover up her own extortion, she turned back to me. Her face was hard. That brand damage is incalculable. She walked back to the table. I am calling a meeting, she said. Tomorrow evening. Here. A meeting I asked. A family meeting. Evelyn corrected. I have invited your parents and your sister. I told them it is to discuss the wedding budget. They think I'm going to write them a check to smooth things over. She looked at me. I want you there. I hesitated. The thought of being in a room with them, physically, without a screen or a security guard between us, made my skin crawl. They will cause a scene. I said, not in my building. Evelyn said, and no cameras. I will have security confiscate phones at the door. I want them to look me in the eye when the truth is put on the table. She leaned in. You do not have to say a word. Caroline, you just have to exist. Your presence will be the catalyst. I will do the rest. I thought about Noah. I thought about the case file. I thought about the years I spent hiding, changing my name, erasing my history. I am done hiding. I said, good. Evelyn said, 7 o'clock. I left the building. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I had turned my old SIM card back on, just to monitor the incoming fire. Though I kept the ringer off, I checked the screen. It was a notification from Instagram. Hadley had tagged me in a story. I opened it. It was a black screen with white text. I know you are talking to Preston's mom. If you try to poison her against me, I will release the rest of the truth. I will tell everyone about what you did to Dad. Do not test me. If you show up to this meeting, you better keep your mouth shut. It was a vague, empty threat. What I did to Dad. I had done nothing to Dad except refuse to be his credit mule, but to her followers, it sounded ominous. It sounded like I had a dark secret. She was doubling down. She was terrified. I showed the screen to Noah when I got home. He read it and handed the phone back to me. She is cornered. Noah said, animals bite when they are cornered. Let her bite. I said, I am wearing armor. I went to my closet. I pushed aside the jeans and the work shirts. I reached to the back and pulled out a suit I had bought for interviews but never worn. It was navy blue, sharp, professional. It looked like something an engineer would wear. It looked like something an adult would wear. I was not going to that meeting as the little sister in the ill-fitting party dress. I was not going as the victim. I was going as the evidence. I texted Evelyn back. I will be there. The game board had changed. It was no longer a family squabble in a suburban backyard. It was a corporate hostile takeover. And for the first time in my life, the person with the biggest bank account was on my side. But as I lay in bed that night, listening to the wind rattle the windows of my paid-for house, I knew that tomorrow would not just be a meeting, it would be an execution. The only question was, who would walk out of the room alive? The conference room on the 42nd floor of Mercer Holdings was designed to intimidate. The walls were floor-to-ceiling glass, offering a view of the city that made human beings look like ants. The table was a slab of polished black granite, cold to the touch. In the center, sitting like a monolith, was a thick stack of manila folders. Next to each leather chair was a bottle of imported mineral water, sweating slightly in the climate-controlled air. I arrived first. I sat on the left side of the table, flanked by Mr. Sterling and a silent stenographer Evelyn had hired to transcribe the meeting. I wore my navy suit. My hands were folded on the table, perfectly still. I was not there to fight. I was there to be an exhibit. Evelyn Mercer sat at the head of the table. She was reviewing a document, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. She did not look up when the elevator doors slid open. The Williams family walked in. Marla led the way. She was wearing her Sunday best, a floral dress that was too bright for the corporate austerity of the room. Gordon followed, wearing a blazer that looked tight across the shoulders, and then Hadley. She was dressed in white. Of course, a delicate, lace-trimmed sundress that suggested innocence, fragility, and piety. She was clutching a designer purse that I knew was a knockoff because I knew exactly how much money was in their bank accounts. They stopped when they saw me. Marla's step faltered. Gordon's face flushed a deep, ugly red. Hadley's eyes widened, and for a second, the mask slipped, revealing the terrified girl beneath the influencer polish. But they were professionals. They recovered instantly. "Caroline," Marla breathed, placing a hand over her heart. She rushed toward me, arms open. "Oh, praise God. We have been so worried." She tried to hug me. I did not stand up. I did not unfold my hands. I simply looked at her. "Please sit down," Evelyn said. Her voice was not loud, but it cut through Marla's performance like a guillotine. Marla froze. She looked at Evelyn, then back at me, hurt radiating from her face. She pulled out a chair and sat. Gordon and Hadley followed. They sat on the opposite side of the granite slab. The distance between us was only 4 feet, but it felt like an ocean. "We are here," Marla began, her voice trembling with practiced emotion, "to heal. Family is about forgiveness. We know Caroline has been struggling. We are ready to put the past behind us." She looked at me with teary eyes. "We forgive you, Caroline, for running away, for the things you said. We just want to be a family again, and with the wedding coming up, it is the perfect time for a fresh start." Gordon cleared his throat. He tried to look authoritative, but he shrank under the gaze of the Mercer Holdings security guard standing by the door. "It is about responsibility," Gordon said. "You are an adult now. Caroline, you have a good job. It is time to do your part. We can discuss a payment plan for the arrears you owe the family, but the wedding contribution is non-negotiable. It is a matter of honor." Hadley sniffled. She pulled a tissue from her purse and dabbed at dry eyes. "I just want my sister back," she whispered. "I just want peace." It was a masterclass in manipulation. If I had been an outsider, I might have believed them. I might have seen a loving family trying to reach out to a wayward daughter. Evelyn took off her glasses. She folded them slowly and placed them on the table. "Are you finished?" she asked. The room went silent. Marla blinked. Evelyn did not wait for an answer. She picked up a remote control and pointed it at the wall-sized screen behind her. "I am not interested in your forgiveness, Mrs. Williams," Evelyn said, "and I am certainly not interested in your definition of honor. I am interested in facts." She pressed a button. The screen lit up. It was not a spreadsheet. It was a video. It was the clip Sterling's team had recovered from Hadley's cloud, the one where she was applying eye drops to fake tears. On the screen, Hadley's face was enormous. The sound of her voice filled the room. "I need to look sadder," the on-screen Hadley said. "If I can get this crying video to hit 1 million views, the GoFundMe will hit the target by Friday." In the conference room, the real Hadley went pale. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked at the screen, then at her phone, which had been confiscated at the door. Evelyn pressed the button again. The screen changed to a text thread. Hadley: "We should just start telling people she is running from loan sharks. That explains why she needs money from us." Marla stared at the screen. She did not understand the technology, but she understood the words. She looked at Hadley. "You deleted those," Gordon whispered. He was looking at his daughter with horror, not because she had lied, but because she had been caught. Evelyn pressed the button a third time. This was the payment request. Hadley requests $18,000. Note: "Don't embarrass me." Evelyn turned off the screen. The room plunged back into the gray light of the overcast afternoon. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the granite. "You have spent the last week painting this woman as a thief and a monster," Evelyn said, gesturing to me. "You have raised money from your church under false pretenses. You have harassed a Northline Systems employee to the point where their legal department is preparing a restraining order." She slid the thick stack of folders across the table. It stopped in front of Gordon. "That is the evidence," Evelyn said. "Every deleted draft, every text message, every timestamp. My team found it all." Hadley was shaking. Her hands were gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were white. "That is private," Hadley stammered. You hacked me. That is illegal. It is data recovery from a public cloud server," Evelyn replied calmly. "And frankly, my dear, if you are going to commit fraud, you should use a stronger password than your birth year." Evelyn looked at Marla. "Here is the situation. Your daughter is not a victim. She is a content creator who is using my son's wedding as a season finale to boost her engagement metrics." Marla stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "How dare you?" Marla hissed. Her mask of piety was gone, replaced by the snarl of a cornered animal. "You are trying to ruin her. You think because you are rich you can bully us. I am not bullying you," Evelyn said. "I am making you an offer." She held up one finger. "One, Hadley posts a video today, a real one. She admits she lied. She admits Caroline never stole a dime. She admits the fundraising was based on false information." She held up a second finger. "Two, you refund every single cent to the donors on that GoFundMe page. My auditors will verify this." She held up a third finger. "Three, you sign a legal agreement never to contact Caroline Vaughn again. You do not speak her name. You do not tag her. She ceases to exist for you. And if we don't," Gordon challenged, though his voice was weak, "then the wedding is off," Evelyn said. The silence that followed was absolute. Marla's face turned purple. "You cannot do that," she screamed. "The invitations are out. The deposits are paid. You are destroying my daughter's future. She loves Preston," Evelyn said, her voice dropping to a temperature that could freeze nitrogen. "She loves the lifestyle Preston can give her, and I am the gatekeeper of that lifestyle. I will not let my son walk into a house built on poison." Hadley burst into tears. Real tears this time. Ugly, gasping sobs. "Mom, do something," she wailed. The door to the conference room opened. We all turned. Preston walked in. He looked tired. He was wearing a casual polo shirt, and his hair was messy, as if he had been running his hands through it. He held a tablet in his hand. Preston Hadley gasped. She wiped her face frantically. "Baby, what are you doing here? Your mother is telling lies. She is attacking me." Preston did not look at her. He looked at the screen behind Evelyn, which was still displaying the text message about the loan sharks. Evelyn did not look surprised. She had timed this. She wanted him to see the wreckage. "I saw the file, Mom," Preston said. His voice was hollow. Evelyn nodded. "I wanted you to hear it from them, Preston, but the data speaks for itself." Preston walked over to the table. He looked at Hadley. He looked at her with an expression I recognized. It was the way one looks at a stranger they realize they have accidentally let into their house. "Loan sharks," Preston asked quietly. "You told me she was a criminal. You told me she stole your medical money." Hadley reached for his hand. He pulled back. "Babe, listen," she pleaded. "It was just a strategy. We needed the money for the wedding. You know how expensive the venue is. I did it for us." "For us," Preston repeated. He looked at the screen again. "Don't embarrass me." He turned to me. For the first time, he really looked at me. He saw the suit. He saw the calmness. He saw the person who had been working in a factory while his fiancée was planning a drone shoot. "I am sorry." "Caroline," Preston said. Hadley stood up. She pointed a shaking finger at me. "This is your fault," she screamed. Her voice cracked, shrill and ugly. "You did this. You just had to show up. Why couldn't you just stay gone?" She looked at Preston, desperate to salvage the narrative. "She provoked us. Preston, she disappeared for 5 years. She let us think she was dead. She tortured us with her silence. If she had just been a normal sister, none of this would have happened." I stood up. The movement was slow, deliberate. The room went quiet. I looked at Hadley. I looked at the sister who had laughed while I held a knife on my 18th birthday. "I did not leave to torture you," I said. My voice was steady. It did not shake. I walked around the table until I was standing 2 feet from her. "I disappeared because on the day I turned 18, my mother told me she wished I wasn't born, and you told me the house would be more peaceful without me." Marla gasped. She tried to interrupt. "I was drunk. It was a joke." I ignored her. I kept my eyes on Hadley. "I gave you exactly what you asked for. Hadley, I gave you a world without me. You just didn't like that you couldn't use me as a punching bag anymore." I leaned in. "I disappeared because I was told I shouldn't exist. And now, to you." I turned to Preston. "She is your problem now," I said. Preston looked at me, then back at Hadley. He looked at the ring on her finger. It was a 3-carat diamond. It probably cost more than my house. "No," Preston said. He reached out and took Hadley's left hand. She tried to pull away, but he held firm. He didn't take the ring off. He just let go of her hand, as if realizing he was holding something dirty. "I am not marrying her," Preston said. He looked at his mother. "I am not marrying a person who is willing to kill her own sister on the internet just to protect her image." Hadley screamed. It was a raw, primal sound of entitlement being denied. You can't do this to me. I am Hadley Williams." "Not anymore," Preston said. He turned and walked out of the room. He didn't look back. Hadley stood there, vibrating with rage. She looked at Evelyn, who was calmly sipping her water. She looked at me. "I hate you," Hadley hissed. "I hate you so much. The feeling is not mutual." I said, "I feel nothing for you at all." Hadley grabbed her purse. She looked like she wanted to lunge at me, but the security guard took a step forward. "Come on, Mother," Hadley spat. "We are leaving." She stormed out. Marla scrambled to follow, shooting me a look of pure venom. Gordon lingered for a second, looking at the stack of evidence folders on the table. He looked old and defeated. He didn't say a word. He just hung his head and followed the women who had led him off a cliff. The door closed. The silence returned to the room. Evelyn Mercer took a deep breath. She closed the folder in front of her. "Thank you, Caroline," she said. I nodded. I did not feel triumphant. I felt exhausted. I felt light, like a weight I had been carrying for 5 years had finally been dropped. I walked to the elevator. I went down the 42 floors. I walked out into the cool evening air. I checked my phone. Noah had texted, "You okay? I'm done." I typed back, but the war wasn't over. It had just changed battlefields. 3 hours later, as I was sitting on my couch with a glass of cheap wine, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Instagram. Hadley had posted a video. I opened it. She was sitting in her car. The interior was dark. Her mascara was running down her face, but this time, there were no eye drops. This was real rage. "They think they can silence me," Hadley said into the camera, her voice shaking with fury. "The rich people, The liars. My sister and her corporate lawyers think they can bully me into silence. She leaned into the lens. Her eyes were wild. I am not apologizing. I am not refunding a dime. Because I earned it. I earned it dealing with the trauma she caused. She smiled. And it was the ugliest thing I had ever seen. You want a war. Caroline, you want to take my fiancé? Fine. Let's see who the internet really loves. I am not going away. I am just getting started. The video ended. I put the phone down. She had chosen the nuclear option. She had rejected the lifeboat Evelyn offered and decided to swim in the shark-infested waters of total conflict. I looked at the case file on my laptop. I had hoped it would end in that conference room. I had hoped facts would be enough. But Hadley didn't care about facts. She cared about the show. I took a sip of wine. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. If she wanted the internet to decide, she was forgetting one crucial thing about the internet. It loves a villain. Yes, but it loves a receipt even more. I opened my laptop. I opened the folder containing the security footage from Northline Systems. I opened the folder with the screenshots of the text messages. I had never posted anything publicly. I had never told my side. I created a new TikTok account. Username, the receipts, CV. I uploaded the first file. I did not add a caption. I just hit post. Then I am dead. I had said 5 years ago, tonight, the ghost was starting to speak. Hadley did not go quietly into the night. She went loud, high definition, and vertical. 24 hours after Preston walked out of the conference room, my sister launched her counteroffensive. She did not attack him directly. Attacking a Mercer was a tactical error she could no longer afford. Instead, she pivoted to a narrative that the internet finds irresistible: the underdog story. She posted a 10-minute video titled, "The Truth About Being Bullied by Billionaires." In the video, she sat on the floor of her childhood bedroom, wearing an oversized sweatshirt, her knees pulled to her chest. The lighting was dim. She spoke with a hushed, terrified reverence. "I cannot give you names," she whispered, glancing nervously at the door as if hitmen were waiting in the hallway. "But you all know who they are. They have money, they have skyscrapers, and they decided that a girl from a normal, middle-class family was not good enough for their prince." She wiped a dry eye. "They threatened my parents. They hacked my private accounts. They used their corporate lawyers to intimidate my sister, who has been struggling with mental health issues for years, into turning against us. They offered to pay her off if she lied about me." I watched the video from my kitchen island. The brilliance of the lie was sickening. She had taken the truth that Evelyn had used resources to uncover the fraud and twisted it into a conspiracy of elite oppression. She had weaponized her own defeat. The comments section exploded. "Eat the rich. They can buy laws, but they can't buy the truth. Stay strong. Queen, we are with you." For 6 hours, it looked like she might win. The internet loves a martyr, especially one who fits the beauty standard. But Evelyn Mercer did not become the matriarch of a financial empire by letting a 20-year-old influencer control the news cycle. At noon, the official Mercer Holdings social media accounts released a statement. It was not a video, it was a PDF document on letterhead. Stark, black and white, boring, to the public regarding the recent allegations made by Ms. Hadley Williams. Mercer Holdings is in possession of digital forensics, notarized affidavits, and security footage confirming that Ms. Williams engaged in a conspiracy to extort money from her estranged sister, Caroline Vaughn, under the guise of wedding expenses. The alleged hacking was a legal recovery of data from public cloud servers. Ms. Williams's claims of bullying are a response to being confronted with evidence of her own financial misconduct. We are initiating legal action for defamation. Furthermore, any media outlet repeating these proven falsehoods will be subject to litigation. The engagement of Preston Mercer and Hadley Williams has been terminated. It was a nuclear strike disguised as a press release. The tide turned so fast it caused whiplash. The internet detectives, emboldened by the Mercer statement and my own anonymous receipts account, began to dig. They found the timestamps. They found the contradictions in Hadley's timeline. Then came the financial hemorrhage. The first brand to drop was the vitamin company. They did not make a statement. They simply removed Hadley from their ambassador page and deleted her discount code. Then the jewelry company followed. Then, the wedding vendors. Because the engagement was publicly broken and the controversy was toxic. The venue, a historic estate that prided itself on exclusivity, invoked a reputation clause in the contract. They canceled the reservation. And because the cancellation was due to the client's breach of conduct, they kept the deposit, $8,000, gone. The florist canceled. The photographer canceled. Marla and Gordon were bleeding money they did not have, for a wedding that would never happen. To impress people who were now laughing at them, the blow to their reputation hit closer to home. 2. The Stonebridge Community Church, an institution that cared deeply about appearances, could not ignore the noise. The healing fund Marla had set up was flagged for fraud. The platform froze the funds. Then, the church board sent an email. Dear Sister Marla, in light of the recent revelations regarding the nature of the fundraising and the conflict within your family, the Board of Elders feels it is best if you step down from the women's ministry leadership role until this season of tribulation has passed. We also request that the fundraising link be removed from all church-affiliated groups immediately. It was a polite excommunication from the social hierarchy Marla had spent 20 years climbing, but the most dangerous wound was inflicted on Gordon. My father was a commercial real estate agent. His business relied on trust and the projection of stability. A man who screams at security guards in defense contractor lobbies is not a man you trust with a multi-million-dollar land deal. The video of his meltdown at Northline had circulated in local business circles. 2 days after the Mercer statement, Gordon lost the listing for the new shopping complex on the west side. It was a commission that would have covered their debts. The developer simply emailed him saying they were moving in a different direction with a partner who has a lower profile. Gordon did not blame himself. He did not blame Hadley. He blamed the girl who wasn't supposed to be born. I received a voicemail from a blocked number. I did not answer, but the transcription appeared on my screen. You ungrateful wretch. You think you won. You destroyed this family. You owe me everything. I will take everything you have. I deleted it, but I saved a copy to the case file. I thought they were done. I thought they were broken. I was wrong. When a narcissist loses their supply, they do not retreat. They attack. And when they lose their money, they play dirty. A week later, I was sitting in the office of the lawyer Northline had helped me retain. Her name was Sarah Jenkins. She was sharp, young, and specialized in harassment cases. She slid a document across her desk. Her expression was grim. You have been served, she said. I looked at the papers. Civil suit, Gordon and Marla Williams versus Caroline Vaughn. They are suing me, I asked, incredulous. For what I haven't taken a dime from them. Read the counts, Sarah said. I looked down. Count 1, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Count 2, tortious interference with contractual relations, the wedding. Count 3, defamation of character. Count 4, elder abuse. Financial abandonment, elder abuse. I laughed. It was a dark, jagged sound. They are in their late 40s. It does not matter if the charges stick, Sarah said. Leaning forward, Caroline, look at the discovery requests. I turned the page. Plaintiff requests the defendant's current physical address. Plaintiff requests the defendant's full legal name and history of name changes. Plaintiff requests the defendant's current banking information to assess damages. Plaintiff requests the defendant's employment records. I went cold. They don't want to win the lawsuit. I whispered, no. Sarah confirmed. They want the data. They know that to defend yourself, you have to enter the system. You have to file answers. You have to appear. They are using the court to strip away your anonymity. They are legally doxing you. If I settled, I asked, testing the waters. If you settle, you have to sign documents with your legal name. You have to send a check with your address on it, and they will just sue you again in 6 months for something else. Sarah took off her glasses. They are trying to drag you out of the shadows. Caroline, They want to show you that you cannot hide from them. They want to force you to stand in a room and acknowledge them. I looked at the lawsuit. I saw Gordon's signature at the bottom, shaky and angry. I thought about the house I owned. I thought about the job I loved. I thought about Noah, who was currently installing security cameras at our front door because we were afraid of my own father. I had spent 5 years running. I had spent 5 years building a wall of silence. But walls, I realized, are defensive. Walls do not stop the siege. They only prolong it. I am not settling. I said. Sarah nodded. Good. Then we moved to dismiss no. I said. I looked up at her. The fear was gone. It had been replaced by a cold, hard clarity. If I dismiss, they will just file again. They will keep throwing paper at me until I drown. I tapped the document. They want to see me, fine. They can see me. I pulled out my own file, the one with the screenshots, the police reports, the fraud alerts, the video of Gordon screaming, the audio of, "We wish you were not born." We are not dismissing. I said, we are countersuing. Sarah raised an eyebrow. On what grounds? Everything, I said. Defamation, malicious prosecution, abuse of process, harassment, stalking, and I want a permanent restraining order that bars them from coming within 500 yards of me, my home, or my workplace. I took a breath. They want to use the legal system to find me. Then let's use the legal system to bury them. I want to depose them. I want them under oath. I want to ask Hadley, on the record, under penalty of perjury. If she lied about the medical bills, I want to ask Gordon about the credit card fraud. Sarah smiled. It was a shark smile. Discovery goes both ways, she said. If they sue you, they open up their own lives to scrutiny. We can subpoena their bank records to prove they were not financially abandoned, but were actually insolvent due to their own spending. We can subpoena their communications. Do it, I said. We filed the countersuit 48 hours later. The reaction was silence. They hadn't expected me to fight back. They expected the scared 18-year-old girl. They didn't expect Caroline Vaughn, the engineer who knew how to dismantle a machine piece by piece. But the legal machine moves slowly until it moves very fast. 2 weeks later, the notification came. I was at home, making dinner. Noah was cutting vegetables. The mail had just arrived. I opened the envelope from the county clerk. Notice of hearing, case num 24CV 8892. Williams v. Vaughn, settlement conference and preliminary hearing, date October 14th, location courtroom 4B. All parties must appear in person. I stared at the paper. October 14th, 3 weeks away. I handed the paper to Noah. He read it and set it down on the counter. You have to see them, he said. Yes, I said. It would be the first time in 5 years. The last time I saw them, I was walking out of a side door with a backpack. The last time I saw them, I was invisible. Now, I would be sitting at a table opposite them, under the fluorescent lights of a courtroom. There would be no filters, no edited videos, no carefully curated captions, just the truth. I felt a tremor in my hand. Not fear, adrenaline. They wanted to drag me into the light to burn me. They forgot that light reveals the rot just as clearly as it reveals the flower. I picked up the hearing notice and pinned it to the refrigerator, right next to the weekly grocery list. Let them come, I said. Noah went back to chopping the peppers. The knife made a rhythmic, steady sound against the cutting board. Chop, chop, chop. It sounded like a countdown. Courtroom 4B smelled of floor wax and stale anxiety. It was a small room, windowless and suffocating, lit by buzzing fluorescent strips that made everyone's skin look gray. This was not the cinematic courtroom with a gallery full of spectators. This was where the real work of the legal system happened in the boring, terrifying quiet of a settlement hearing. I sat on the right side of the mahogany table. Sarah, my lawyer, sat next to me. Her posture was rigid, her notes spread out with military precision. On the left side sat the Williams family. They had dressed for the role of their lives. Marla was wearing a modest navy dress and a strand of pearls, looking every inch the grieving, confused mother. Gordon wore a suit that was 10 years out of date. His shoulders slumped in a posture of defeated patriarchy. Hadley was the centerpiece. She wore no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a loose, messy ponytail. She sniffled periodically, dabbing her nose with a tissue that she kept crumpled in her hand. The mediator, a retired judge named Mr. Blackwood, sat at the head of the table. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had seen too many families tear each other apart over money and pride. "Let us begin," Mr. Blackwood said. He opened the file. "We are here to address the lawsuit filed by the Williams family against Ms. Vaughn and the countersuit filed by Ms. Vaughn." Marla moved first. She didn't wait for her lawyer to speak. She leaned forward, her eyes swimming with tears that seemed to appear on command. "Your Honor," Marla said, her voice trembling, "we never wanted this. We are just parents. Our daughter, she ran away 5 years ago. We were frantic. We prayed every night." She looked at me. It was a look of pure, weaponized pity. "We just wanted to reconnect." Marla continued. "We reached out because her sister is getting married. We thought it was a chance to heal. But instead of love, she sent lawyers. She blocked us. She shamed us on the internet." Gordon cleared his throat. He placed a heavy hand on the table. "We supported her for 18 years, he said, his voice gruff and filled with gravitas. "We gave her a home, we gave her an education, and she abandoned us. The financial strain she left behind, the emotional damage, it is immeasurable. We just want her to take responsibility." Hadley let out a small, broken sob. "I just wanted my sister at my wedding," she whispered. "It was a perfect performance. If I hadn't lived in the house with them, I would have believed it. They were painting a masterpiece of victimhood where I was the villain who had shattered a loving home." Mr. Blackwood looked at me. "Ms. Vaughn?" he asked. I did not speak. I nodded to Sarah. Sarah stood up. She did not use emotional language. She used paper. "Your Honor," Sarah said, her voice crisp and cool. "The narrative presented by the plaintiffs is a fabrication designed to extract money from my client. We are not dealing with a family dispute. We are dealing with a coordinated campaign of extortion and harassment." Sarah slid a piece of paper across the table. "Exhibit A," she said. "A payment request sent by Hadley Williams to my client last month. The amount is $18,000. The note attached reads, 'Don't embarrass me. This was not an invitation to a wedding. This was a bill.'" Marla's lawyer tried to interrupt. That was a contribution request customary in families. Sarah ignored him. She slid another photo across the table. "Exhibit B," she continued. "A still image from a video taken in the lobby of Northline Systems. It shows Mr. Gordon Williams screaming at a security guard, demanding access to my client's workplace to collect back rent for her childhood." Gordon shifted in his seat. He looked away. "And Exhibit C," Sarah said, placing a thick stack of screenshots on the table. "Evidence of doxing. Accounts linked to the plaintiff's IP addresses posting my client's approximate home address and encouraging strangers to harass her." Mr. Blackwood picked up the screenshots. He frowned. "This is serious," he muttered. But Marla was not done. She shook her head, her pearls rattling. "She is lying," Marla cried out. "She has always been a liar. She is twisting everything. We love her. We would never hurt her. She is the one who told us she was dead. She is the one who said hateful things to us." Hadley jumped in, her voice rising. "She told everyone we said we wished she wasn't born," Hadley shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. "That is a lie. Who says that to their child? She made it up to make us look like monsters." The room went silent. This was their cornerstone defense. They were banking on the fact that no one would believe a mother and sister could be that cruel. They were banking on the idea that without proof, it was just my word against their loving family image. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a small, silver USB drive. I placed it on the table. I looked at Tessa, who was sitting in the back of the room. Tessa, who had told me 5 years ago, "Record it. If you think they are going to hurt you, record it." I had put my phone in my chest pocket that day. I had hit record 10 minutes before the cake came out. Sarah picked up the drive. "Your Honor," Sarah said, "my client anticipated this denial. This is an audio recording taken on the evening of Caroline's 18th birthday. Marla went pale. The color drained from her face so fast she looked like she might faint. Hadley stopped crying instantly. Sarah plugged the drive into the laptop connected to the room's speaker system. She clicked a file. Static filled the room. Then, the sound of wind chimes, the sound of a sliding glass door opening, then, the singing, a discordant, bored rendition of Happy Birthday. We sat there, listening to the ghosts of 5 years ago. I watched Gordon's face twitch. The singing stopped. Make a wish, someone shouted on the recording. Then, the sound of breath blowing out candles. Then, Marla's voice, slurred, sharp, unmistakable. Look at her. So serious. Always so serious. The Marla in the courtroom closed her eyes. Then, the line, clear as a bell, loud enough to cut through the years. We wish you were not born. Caroline. Silence on the tape. Silence in the courtroom. Then, Hadley's voice. The laugh. The giggle that I had heard in my nightmares. This house would be more peaceful without her. The recording played on. It captured the sound of the knife clinking against the plate. It captured my voice, flat and dead. Then, I am dead. Sarah stopped the recording. The silence in the room was heavy, physical. It pressed against the eardrums. Mr. Blackwood looked at the Williams family. His expression had changed. The tiredness was gone, replaced by a cold, hard disgust. He looked at Marla, who was staring at the table, her hands trembling. He looked at Hadley, who was biting her lip so hard it was turning white. The credibility of the plaintiffs is dissolved. Mr. Blackwood said. His voice was low. Marla tried to speak. It was a joke. Stop, Mr. Blackwood said. He didn't shout, but the command slapped her into silence. Just stop. The door to the hearing room opened. Evelyn Mercer walked in. She was not a party to the lawsuit, but Sarah had listed her as a witness regarding the defamation and financial fraud aspects of the countersuit. Evelyn did not sit. She stood at the end of the table. She looked at Hadley. My security team has completed the audit of the fundraising accounts. Evelyn said. She didn't say hello. She just delivered the payload. We found that the money raised for the so-called healing fund was being transferred directly to a personal account in Hadley's name. And we found the drafts. She placed a tablet on the table. It showed the video of Hadley using the eye drops. Hadley let out a sound that was half gasp, half whimper. She looked at her lawyer, begging him to do something, but the lawyer was packing his briefcase. He knew when a ship had sunk. Mr. Blackwood looked at the evidence. He looked at the family. I have seen enough, he said. He turned to the Williams family. You filed this suit to harass the defendant, he stated, and in doing so, you have exposed your own fraudulent behavior. If this goes to trial, you will lose, and you will likely face criminal charges for the misuse of charitable funds. He looked at Sarah. What does your client want? Sarah looked at me. I stood up. I want them gone. I said, I want a full retraction. I continued. I want Hadley to post a video, reading a script approved by my lawyer, admitting that the allegations against me were false. I want every penny of the donation money returned to the donors. I looked at Gordon. I want the credit card fraud acknowledged, and I want a permanent restraining order. No contact, no emails, no driving past my house, no mentioning my name on the internet. Hadley panicked. I can't post a retraction, she squeaked. It will ruin my career, my sponsors. You don't have a career. Hadley, I said, you have a scam, and it is over. Hadley looked at me, her eyes wide and desperate. Caroline, please, she begged. Can we talk? Just us in the hallway. I can cut you in. We can spin this. We can say we made up. The internet loves a redemption arc. We can make so much money. I looked at her. She still didn't get it. She thought this was about views. She thought everything was content. No, I said. I sat back down. Mr. Blackwood began to write the order. The settlement was brutal. It was a complete surrender. They had to pay my legal fees. They had to issue the public apology. They had to sign a document admitting to the harassment. The lawyer for the Williams family whispered to them, "Sign it. If you go to trial, You will be bankrupt. One by one, they signed. Gordon signed with a shaking hand. Marla signed. Tears streaming down her face. Real tears this time. Tears for the loss of her control. Hadley signed, looking like she wanted to vomit. Then, the document came to me. I picked up the pen. I looked at the signature line, defendant, for 5 years. I had been running from the name Williams. I had been hiding. But hiding implies fear. I wasn't afraid anymore. I put the pen to the paper. I did not sign Caroline Williams. I wrote, in sharp, clear letters, Caroline Vaughn. I set the pen down. Marla was watching me. She saw the signature. She saw the name. Vaughn, she whispered, that is that teacher's name. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw the realization hit her. She had told me she wished I wasn't born. She had tried to erase me, and I had obliged her. I had erased the daughter she knew and replaced her with someone she could not touch. I am not your daughter, Mrs. Williams, I said. Caroline Williams died in your backyard 5 years ago. You killed her. I stood up. I picked up my bag. I nodded to Evelyn Mercer, who gave me a small, respectful inclination of her head. I nodded to Sarah. I turned and walked toward the door. Caroline Gordon called out. His voice was cracked, desperate. Where are you going? I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I walked out of the courtroom. I walked down the long marble hallway. I pushed open the heavy double doors and stepped out into the afternoon sun. The air was cool. The traffic noise was loud. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. I pulled out my phone. I opened the message thread with Tessa. It is done. I typed, I am okay. I hit send. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the air of a city that was finally, truly mine. I thought about the girl in the blue party dress, standing in the silence of the backyard, holding a knife, looking at a family that wanted her gone. I thought about the fear. I thought about the pain. And then, I let her go. Then, I am dead. I had said, and I was right. She was dead, and I was finally free to live. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed seeing Caroline take control and bury her past, please let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I love seeing our community grow from all corners of the world. Don't forget to subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories. Hit that like button and smash the hype button so this story can reach even more people who need a little reminder that sometimes the best revenge is a life well lived. See you in the next story.